Hi, all you lovely creative people. This is June from Oak Witch Lane Designs, and this is going to be part two of my dollar store egg upping the game. I finished the project. And when you look at the end result of the project, there are different things that you can put in here. I made some birds. That's the bigger bird. We have the smaller bird. And then we have, of course, Easter eggs that you can put in there. There's a few more on the desk, but I'm not going to get them. And then here's the back. I applied a little bit of moss. I'm going to give you the step-by-step instructions of what I did. I tried to keep it to an hour long because the live stream was 2 hours. So I'm trying to keep the finishing down to just about an hour. But the one thing that I didn't say at the end of this video was you can decorate this any which way you want. This is just the way I decided to decorate it. If you want to use different molds on here, you don't have to put this over around here. I decided to use ribbon instead of the roses that I was going to put around. You can do whatever you want. Once you have the base unit, which consists of a pedestal, the top of a tub, a can, not a can, a plastic, this thing. Once you get, let me just show you because I have one. This is what I used. And then the egg from the dollar store, which you just cut the bottom of, and you glue it down. You could decorate this any which way you want to, and it's fun because you can have some versatility. If you don't want to make it in this style, I am sure that you can make it as maybe a little shrine or something, put stars or even steampunk it. I don't know. But as long as you get the egg, the base, and the pedestal, and they don't even have to be the ones that I used, you can get uh, your own pedestals, or even not. You could just put it down just like this without the pedestal on it. But it was just fun to play around and to decorate some things that I had lying around. So I will stop talking now and go to the instructional part of the video. Okay, so let's do a little bit of a recap. Last we left off, the piece was pretty much like this. And here are just, like I said, a little recap. This base piece is from Michaels. This is what it is. Uh, if you're going to use something like this, make sure the top is sanded smooth and not crooked. This is a little higher over here than it is over here. So if I was going to use this as a pedestal for anything, I'd have to sand down this edge over around here. It's not that expensive, so you get what you pay for. The next thing is that I didn't have a circle piece of wood that would fit around here, so I just took the cap off of a large jar. Then this piece is half of the egg, and I'll show you the back, but I've decorated it a little bit. Half of an egg from a dollar store that I used Prima, rice paper, roses. I left links down below where you could get the paper. And then this is also a frame from Michaels that I used this bottom piece that I cut off for another project, and it fit quite well into this area, so I'm using that. And then what I did was, except for this background, because this is plastic, this is wood, and the egg is also plastic, I paper machéed some paper on it with Mod Podge. And then when that was all dry, and I did everything. I did the cap, I did the wooden piece, I did the back of the egg. I didn't do this. But after that was all dry, I painted it a dark. I used raw umber, a combination of raw umber and burnt sienna, because I wanted this color to show through the cracks. And then I used Deco weathered wood, and I put it all over everything, and then pounced. I didn't brush stroke because I like the cracks, and hopefully my camera can show it to you. I like the cracks not to look like wood, just to look sort of miscellaneous. I don't know, random. Okay, so I also have the nest, and that's drying, and I'll get that in a second, but it's still pretty gooky, so hopefully it'll dry a little bit. Then what I decided to do was to take my paper clay and to decorate the back a little bit. So I made some pieces, and I'll show you the mold that I used. These three pieces are from a different mold, and I'll show you that one also. And I made them, and I used this heavy body gel from Prima to glue them on. Now you can see some cracks going on. I don't know, can you? I'm trying to see if you can. Some cracks going on over here, but that's okay because the piece is meant not to be perfect. And I'll show you some other things because I'm going to make two pieces right now for you. You've seen me do this. I know you've seen other people do this a million times, but I figured I would just show it to you on the video. I glued them on. I have to wait for them to dry. And one of the things is, although I like this painting texture that I got, I don't feel like it's thick enough. It doesn't look thick to me. And I wanted this to look like an old piece with thickness. So what I am going to do, once I get all of these pieces on, the two in the front, I'm going to put another coat of the raw sienna and burnt umber, another coat of the weathered wood, and another coat of this color, and it'll give me more of a thickness. Now, I did spray all of this the first time because I thought it was going to be good enough, but I'm not feeling that it's grungy, I guess, or has depth enough. I did spray it with that stuff that I mentioned, the matte spray. I did give it a spray with that. I have hair. Why do we have hair? Okay. Before I started to put these pieces on, but it really wouldn't have mattered because I am going to go for another coat. So let me show you this part. Oh, okay. I'm going to touch it. I have clean rags here. This is it looks pretty bad right now, but this is the nest. Last you saw it on the other video was me putting on that pasty stuff all over it to give it just like a rough texture. I then painted it brown, and now I slathered the weathered wood all over it. That dries pretty shiny, but that's okay. So I just put that on. And again, like I said at the beginning, these videos are going to be in steps because we have to wait for everything to dry. One other thing, on the last video, you saw me dipping a bunch of roses in the Mod Podge, some paper roses that I got off of Amazon, and they dried. So I put them all in a styrofoam block, and then I just took my Victorian Velvet and my Tatted Rose sprays from Tim Holtz, and just sprayed them up to get them the color that I liked, because I think it pretty much matches the color that's in here. And once I finally get this the way I'd like it, I'm just going to snip off the wires. I'll show you this again when we get to it, and just glue them all around. This is going to be one video, but it's going to have a lot of edits in it because I'm going to stop it once I'm done with this part, and then wait for everything to dry and come back with the next part. But I didn't think that, as I said before, that you would be interested in just watching me paint and watch, paint dry. Okay, so usually what I do, this is the mold that I used. I think I got it overseas. It's Redesign with Prima is what it says over here. Redesign with Prima. That's what it says. There's no numbers on it. Usually with my molds, I take a very light coat of cornstarch and dust it over them, but I didn't do this with this yet. I should have, but we're just going to go ahead. I'm using my creative paper clay. Oh, and I wanted to show you the 3 flowers that I used on the back is 2 of these and 1 of these, and this is a IOD mold. And again, I don't know what the style number is, but what I will do is I will try to find the links to where I purchased these, and if I can find the links, then I will put them in the description box underneath the video. Okay, so let's move out. If you've been watching me or other YouTube videos, you have seen this technique often enough. I'm going to make this one and this one to put them here and here. You've seen this. You've seen me do this quite a few times. I think I've mentioned before, I don't have the aluminite resin, which you could definitely use for this project. The only thing is, you would have to take it out, I think, before it's fully cured. Nikki at Disorganized Crafter, her YouTube channel, she has plenty of videos that work with resin. If you want to go and use your resin and see how to use it, she's done a ton of videos, not a ton, a couple of videos on it. So I would recommend that you go over to her channel, or whoever else that you know of does 2-part epoxy resin in molds. I just use the paper clay because that's what I have, and I've been using it a lot in these molds, so I know how to use this one better. The thing about this is it takes a long time to dry, and it also cracks a little bit. But again, I am not making anything that is so neat that it would look bad if it cracked again, if it had cracks in it. It's sort of the look that I'm going for. Sometimes I use this. This is my polymer clay rolling pin, but it works. The only other thing about paper clay is, honestly, and this is just a personal thing, this has nothing to do with the quality of it, is I don't like how it feels on my hands. It dries, and it's really sometimes tough to get off. And if you happen to be using Mod Podge at the same time that you were using this stuff, it's really hard. Now I see that there's, again, because of my lights, I don't have that great of a studio set up here yet. Hopefully, maybe one day we'll get a better camera and some better lights for this. It's in there. And since this is light gray and the paper clay is white, it's sort of hard to see. But let's see, I missed a few. And I like these molds. There's pros and cons to everything. This is very flimsy. You could see how flimsy this is. These are not as flimsy, so sometimes it's harder to break out the piece, I find, with these. But this is a lot more flimsy a mold, so the piece comes out a little bit easier. And you can bend it. See, this is where you can bend it. When you're using the paper clay, it's a lot easier if you can bend the mold like that. So this is one piece. I'm not going to put it on just yet. I'm just going to leave it over there. It takes a long time to dry, so you don't have to, rush. I wouldn't take 4 hours to do this, but you have a good half an hour, I would think, of work time. Which I also, depending on the resin, you have a different time zone for everything to use, of how to unmold your pieces, and how you can tell when it's dry enough to unmold. Another thing with all of your molds that you have, I would suggest, this is not something that you have to do, but I would suggest you don't, your first time that you try to fill them, make it like a dry run. Because, and I'm hoping this little piece over here, you could have covered that with paper clay and not realized that it was a hole, if you could see the hole over there. And I like, you know, if it has a hole in the mold, I sort of like that. One thing about my paper clay, I think I've mentioned this also before, is I store it in a plastic bag in my refrigerator. I close it, put it in the plastic bag, try to get all the air out of it, and put it in my refrigerator. Sometimes I will also take my paintbrush, put it in some water, and just put water on the end of it. If I don't think I'm going to be using it right away, it keeps it from drying out. I've had stuff stored for quite some time in the refrigerator. I don't know exactly, but I know over a month or two, and it was fine when I took it out. So this would dry if you just left it out in the air, which I did overnight last night, which I wasn't happy about because I was putting things away and I put it on the side and I forgot to put it in the refrigerator. But it's fine today because I had put some water. I'm not talking about a lot of water. Put your paintbrush in your watering can or jar and just go over it, you know, and that's it. You don't have to dump water on that because then you're going to make it too wet. Just a light coating of water. And that, flatten it out a little bit. Okay. Now, originally when I was setting this up, and that's why I have to put a whole nother, well, coat of paint, and I'm treating everything the same. I'm going to put the raw umber, and the burnt sienna on these two pieces, just so everything looks the same. I'm done with that. Let me just shut this up. I also push all the stuff down so it makes contact with the rest of it, because if it's just a little piece hanging out by itself, and just a little water on the ends, just so it doesn't start to dry out. Put it away in your plastic baggie, and after I finish this will go into the refrigerator. And I fold it up like that, and that lasts. I put it on the refrigerator door and it lasts. Doesn't take up much space either. You can either put it up like this, whatever. You can get it in your fridge. Okay, so now let's move all of that stuff over and bring this back. Try not to smush your pieces. Okay, again, I'm using heavy body gel. And I think, like I said, I think this froze, unfortunately. But I'm just smushing. I like that word. It's a very descriptive word for the half of the things that we do. Smushing it on with a palette knife that I got at Michael's. Whole pack of them, very cheap. And I'm thinking I was going to go up like that and put it up on there so you really couldn't see those. So let's just get some of this stuff. I'm putting a nice size coat on here. You can always take it off. This doesn't dry that quickly either. So all of this would probably have to dry at least 24 hours. Okay. And if I remember correctly, I'm doing it like this. I'm just going to see how these look. You just put them on. Okay. So now, by putting them on and lifting them up a little bit, here I am taking away any of that, the cut side of this. Here's the way it looks on the back. Okay. Now the nest can fit in there. I'm just going to have to play with it a little bit. I like when molds break the line. I think it, and when I mean break the line is it goes below the line of the lid. I just like how that looks. And we need some Bounty. And let's clean this up a little bit. What I try to do is I'll come back to this a few times during its drying period time and make sure it's all pressed down. I don't want to press down too hard right now because then I'm going to be ruining all of the lovely texture of the stamp. I mean, of the mold, the stamp, not stamping. And gently going over the edges because the edges get a little rough with the paper clay. Just gently going over the edges just to smooth them out a little bit. Turn it towards me or towards, make sure it's down. And if it lifts up like it did, I don't know if you're not going to be able to see it. I'm sorry, guys. The equipment isn't that great. It lifted up. This piece that's dry lifted up from the cap. So what I'm going to do is just fill that gap because I want it to feel like it's all one piece with some of this gel medium. I'm going to go over and fill in anywhere where there might be a gap. And once you start painting this with all of the different paints that I'm going to be putting on, you're not going to notice that. So just fill up the holes. It's not a perfect craft, but it looks so much better if you can't see that there is a separation between the two. It just looks like it was molded in all one piece. If you see the lines, stuff is definitely something happened to it, I think. If you see lines between your molded piece and what you're putting on it, it makes it look like you put a molded piece on it. So if you do this, it gives it that all one look appearance. Okay, so now that this part is done, try to make sure that they're both at the same, put on equally. Okay. All right, that looks pretty good. And now I got the front done. So I'm gonna wait for all of this to come to get dried up, fill in my cracks, like I said, with my heavy body gel, fill in those cracks wherever they happen to be. Press this down as it's drying a little bit more to make sure it's, you know, drying the way I want it to and on the figure. Go around the edges, trying to wash off some of the gel. Go around the edges to smooth them off a little bit. And wait for it to dry. I will then put another coat of the brown on all of this, the raw umber and the burnt sienna, and then I'll come back with the weathered wood and then pounce this white color, and I think by then I should have enough texture on it. It'll get real textury. If it looks like it's chipping paint off, that's fine. I like that look, and you can achieve that look by the more times you put the weathered wood on and paint. So this is where we're up to. I'm going to try to fix that because there's a little bit of glue back here, or gel, that I don't particularly, a little blob of it that I don't really need. This looks like it's pulling up. Okay, hold on. Again, see, I'm just taking it, I hope you can see, and filling in the cracks of where the molded piece meets. Whoa, see, it's like a little lumpy and bumpy. I don't know if you can see. Oh. And where it cracked, I can also fill it in with a little of this. And that's it for this time. So when everything dries, I'll put, like I said, I'm going to put the 2 coats of paint on it so you don't have to, 3 coats, so you don't have, oh, I'm getting messages always while I'm online. Should have turned that off. Okay, so I'll be back when all of this dries. Okay, so I put the pieces on and they dried, and I waited for them to all to dry, and then I decided I was going to do this whole thing over again, the whole crackle finish and everything. So I started with, and I know in my last video sometimes I said it wrong, so I want to make sure. You can use any brown you have, but I was using a combination of raw umber and burnt sienna. I put a coat of that all over everything again. Then I used, where is it? I try to have everything here. I slathered on this weathered wood, the DecoArt weathered wood, all over the place. I mean, and I really put a lot on. I wasn't worried about how it was going to crackle, this, that, or the other thing. I just put a lot on. And then I took my folk art, this color. It doesn't have a color on it, so I can't even, oh, wait, linen, yay, 879 linen. Took this and I mixed it with some white gesso and I pounced it on pretty heavily because I want this piece to have texture to it, whether it be the paint, the crackling, whatever. I wanted it to have texture, so I dabbed it on pretty heavily. I waited for it to dry, and then it just looked like there was too much crackling going on. I didn't like it that much. So then I went back after it crackled. So I did another coat on certain areas, like right over here, I put a little bit more. Wherever it didn't look like I covered enough, I did some in the back. You can see like here now, I think my camera's picking it up, that you can see a crack that cracked from this, and then I painted over it. So you can paint over your crackling if you want. I mean, worst comes to worst, you start all over again if you don't like how it came out. Then, when all of that was dry, I sprayed it with this. This is Duncan SS339 Super Matte Ceramic Sealer. This gives a really matte finish. And the reason why I did that was I am going to now put some, I'm going to try to antique it a little bit. And I didn't want the acrylic to interact with the paint that was here at all. So I put a one layer of this on it. I sprayed it outside. This stuff sort of smells, okay? Um, so I always try to do it outside if I can. I let it dry, and that's it. I also put a link for this down below in the, description below the video. Okay, so I would like to start by using some raw umber. Oops, upside down, raw umber. At the end of this one, I have another one. Just went out and got some more. Raw umber is one of my favorite colors. I don't know if there's anything left in here. Pretty much no. Okay, well this is a dead tube of paint, so we can toss this out. They changed their tube a little bit. Raw umber, heavy body from Liquitex. Whoa, well, that was a little bit more than I wanted, but that's okay. And I'm going to water this down an awful lot. And I use this raw umber anytime I make a polymer clay figure. I definitely, the first thing you do for me after I make a polymer clay face, hands, whatever I'm doing, when it's finished baking, I rub it with acetone just to get the film off, because polymer clay does have like an oily residue. And then I put a very light wash of this raw umber over the whole piece. It just gives the clay more of an alive feeling to me. This was recommended in a video that I watched by Wendy Froud, and I have to agree with her. I'm just adding a lot of water to this. As you can tell, I have some tissues, regular old paper towels, ready to rock and roll. And you slap it on any which old way. And maybe I put too much water, but we'll figure it out. You can always go over it. I like to make it lighter to begin with because I can always make it darker. It's a little bit harder to make it lighter. Can be done. You can paint this thing all over again. There's no mistakes here because all this is paint. Try to make sure you get it in all the little crevices of your mold. Now, this one is very watery. Maybe I made it too watery, but that's okay. Like I said, we can either add more paint to it. And it gives it a nice antique look. Now you can tell the difference of the color between here and here. I can rub off as much as I want. No matter what, even if I try to wipe it all off, there is still going to be a tone added to it. Whoa, that wasn't a smart move either, because then we were going to have this paint all over me. And you do it in sections because this is so watery. I don't have to rush because it'll come off pretty evenly. Let's put this up here so it doesn't. And this is what I meant with the Dunkin' Super Matte spray. Not that this paint would start to lift off or mix, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And since the weather is a tad warmer, where I could go out right outside my back door and spray this, I did. Just gives it a warmer look. Now what I can do a lot of things. Once this dries, I can spray it again, or I can add some highlights with the paint. I still have some of this paint, the linen folk art with the white gesso. I still have some in one of these things. This is a clothing detergent cup. After you finish using it, I just save these because they're nice big containers. And here, I don't want to be so, try not to be so sloppy because I have the inside. I don't want to get a lot of this on the inside. Now, this color in here looks to me like it has a little bit, I don't know if I would say pinker. I'm trying to make sure that this tone of this that I'm putting here sort of matches that tone, so it doesn't look so unusual, like too different, not unusual, different. Oh, and last you saw the nest was painted brown with the Crackle medium because it was very shiny. And then I just pounced the paint on that too, the same white gesso. I might not take as much off the nest because we're starting to get to the point where, well, we're finished with the structure. Let's do it that way. We are finished with building and constructing. Oh, by the way, I put this nest. It's a really tight fit in there, but I put a whole bunch of this heavy body gel from Prima Finibra on the bottom of it. It hasn't dried yet. I just did it a couple of minutes ago, about half an hour ago. But once this dries, that's not going anywhere. And if I feel like it might be wiggling, what I'm going to do is just take a nail and go right in there and make sure it stays. Now, I've been thinking about what to put in my nest because I want to put something in my nest. And I came up with, I think I'm going to try to make a polymer clay bird, but make it look not as realistic, make it look like it's made out of metal type thing. Metal, not metal type thing, metal. So it's not going to have that much detail in it. And either leave it this brownish rust color in there or paint it with the same technique that I'm doing with everything else, which I can do on polymer clay. Okay. You know, that's something that I can do. Make sure you got all the edges with this. Oops, I'm over here. Sorry, I was off screen. Get under the nest. Oh wait, I was doing these edges, right? Yeah. Oh, that looks a little too white to me. So you can have fun with this. This isn't something that you sort of like, oops, I'm off screen again, sorry. The reason why I like doing these pieces every once in a while, and I know I've been making a lot more of these pieces than I have with my mice, is because this is not as finely detailed, and every once in a while you need a break from all those fine details. And it also gets rid of supplies that somehow or another I have in my little supply stash. And if you're looking at it from all the different angles, you'll see places that you missed. So just go in there and just do this. This is sort of one of the relaxing parts of this whole project. And if I feel that it got a little too dark, I can wet my brush, go over it, and it comes pretty much almost all right off. I think I told everybody that when I put these pieces on, I also use this, the Heavy Body Gel. And this is the type of a piece that you have to let the paints develop. I know everybody does. I try to do live streams where the whole thing is in one fell swoop, but paint has to dry. Paint has to cure. I don't know if that's the proper term for it, but it has to get in the grooves. And you also need to see things with fresh eyes. Sometimes this might not look good to me right now, but because I'm working on it, ooh, I better get the other brush to do there. I don't want to get that. But if you give it overnight. That's why I'm doing it this way, where I'm not trying to finish this off live, because you have, is this brush even working? Okay. You have to give yourself overnight to see, am I all the way at the end? To see how you feel about what you did. I mean, I might want to pound some more of the white on this, the white creamy with the white gesso with that linen. I don't know. I might want to add some other colors. I'm just trying to get it, sorry if I'm not on camera, just trying to get it on all the little crevices and make sure. And it's also a work in progress. People say that a lot when they post their pictures up on Facebook. Oh, it's a work in progress, and they show us half done and everything else like that. I don't know how I'm going to feel about it tomorrow. If I like what I just did, I think I do. I like it tonight. But do I want to add some other colors? I brought my watercolors out from when I was in high school many, and one more many years ago. Oops, this is why I brought this brush out. Hope I'm trying to get in here. Now, normally what I should have done was waited to glue the nest in, but I got a little excited. So we'll just have to make sure that we're extra cautious. And this is it with the antiquing color on it. Now, this now matches that a little bit better. This, and again, I'm going to have to look at it again tomorrow and bring it out into a different light, because I've told everybody that the lights above my workstation, I haven't fixed them yet. But that's how you antique it. And it makes it look old, or at least not brand new, like you just did it. Okay, then let me put this on the side. I have to get in there. Oops, let's just get in there while I have the brushes and this all wet still. Trying to get in that little crevice right over here. And since I can't get my bounty in there, I can just wet my brush and pull some of the color out that way. Okay, so now I wanted to show you the other, it's getting sticky. It's probably because I didn't let the Dunkin' dry enough. You don't want to see my gum. All right, these were the roses that I had picked up at Amazon. You get a whole ton of these roses for very, very cheap. And I put the link also in the description. And if you're in the live stream, I dunked all of these in Mod Podge and I let them dry, and then I went back and I sprayed them once they were all dry, and I gave them a good day or two to make sure they were nice and dry. I took Tim Holtz Distress Spray Stain in Victorian Velvet, and I also took some of this distressed ink. I put it excuse me, in a spray bottle, and I filled it with alcohol, and I put a couple of dropperfuls of this. It comes in a dropper, and I put a couple of dropper full in one of these empty ones, and I filled the rest of it with alcohol, and then I sprayed some of that on these. And I am going to be taking off the backs, which is okay. And once this dries, I'm going to be gluing them all around here. So that's what's going to be my next step. I might be adding some colors, like I said, with my watercolor. My watercolor is just maybe adding like blues and some light blues, like you barely see it. But I think these would be pretty going around the edge. Brighten it up a little bit. Originally, I was thinking of just painting them the same color as I'm painting everything else, but I decided not to. I wanted to give it a little bit more color than just this, and I think it'll look pretty with the once it's all around. And I have to tell you, if I don't like the color of these when I get them all around, then I'll paint them. It's a very painting, it doesn't take much. I'll paint them with the same color and then antique them. But I just thought that that would just bring a little color out. I'm pulling out these nice little wire stems just to show you what I'm going to do. I don't know if I did enough. I think I did enough. I tried to count and see if I did enough, and if I didn't, I can make more. So I just thought that that would be a little pretty going around here. Let's hold it this way and then go around the other side. It might be too much. I don't know, but I have some other ideas that I want to show you, but that will be in the next portion of this. And the other thing is that once I put these roses on, I might like them, but then think that the nest is not dark enough. I can darken the nest. Or like I said, I could maybe not like the color of these. I'll paint them white. They're nice and stiff. You know, they're very stiff, so I can continue painting them whatever color I want to, you know, they go back to their original color. Well, not the original color, because the original color is like a whitish, almost like it has a little bit of a yellow tint to it. But and I like that this has two sides, so if people don't, there we go. Oh, I did do enough. All right, excellent. That one doesn't want to come out. So yeah, they're all falling now, but you get the idea. And how I'll glue these on is probably with just fabric tack. And the thing is, this is open to change. Once I put the bird in here, I might not like all of this. I might want to darken this. I might want to lighten this. It's all subject to change. That's a part of the finishing. Now that you have the structure the way you want it, you can change your mind a lot of times on the finishing details. So as it stands right now, this is pretty much, except a little neater, how I'm going to go. Let me get the bird done. Let me put the bird in there, and we can make up our mind as we go from there. So I know it seems like I'm coming right back because this is all one continuous video, but it'll take me a while to make the bird and get her in there and see how I feel about it then. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, we are finally at the finishing touches, and this is the way I decided to finish it. You can finish it, as I said in the introduction, any which way that you want to. Here's some of the things I did. This sort of looked a little bit barren to me, so I took one of those roses that I had Mod Podged and sprayed with the Victorian Velvet and the Tattered Rose Tim Holtz sprays, and I put it over here, and then I put those same layers of paint. But before that, I also felt that the bottom was a little boring and this was a little boring, and I just wanted to add some texture to it. So what I did with this area right here is I took one of these dollar store necklaces. I had already spray painted this black. I don't know what color it was originally, probably like purple or green, and I glued it around here. I glued also 2 pieces of embroidery floss around the top and the bottom, and then I took some of my paper clay and I tried to go in between. As you can see, it's a pretty big gap, so I just took some paper clay and I smudged it. I know art words are really very technical. I smudged it in there so that it wouldn't show the string in between. And then for the base, I took this mold that I had, and I tried to use paper clay. Didn't work. It was impossible to get it out because it's so thin in spots. I couldn't get it to work, so I just said, okay, that's fine. I have liquid Sculpey in white, and I filled it in the mold. I did this twice, and when you put liquid Sculpey, it's so thick. you can take this type of a mold and go like this with it, like bend it back to try to make sure that the liquid Sculpey gets in all those little cracks and crevices. Once I baked it, it's, I think you bake at 275 for about 15 minutes. Let it, brought it out, let it cool off a little bit, took it off, and I glued it right around the edges. I needed 2 of these to glue totally around. So at that point, I had a couple of things that weren't antiqued or anything like that. So I just decided to paint the whole thing again with the same combination, the brown. It doesn't matter how many layers because I wanted it to have a lot of layers. So I did the brown combination of the raw umber and the burnt sienna. Then I put the crackle medium, and then I put the white, which was that linen paint, and also the white gesso. Once that all dried, I went over with a very light wash of raw umber. And if it got a little too dark, I also took the combination of the linen and the white gesso and just pounced some highlights so it wasn't that dark. I then took some dark green paint and I put it where I would like to put a little bit of the moss, and I put it all around. You'll see some over there, some over here. And in the back, I also have it there just to give it a little bit more texture, look. I don't know what you want to call it, but and then after that dried, I took this stuff, and this stuff is called, I think, Flower Soft. It's very, this little bag was very expensive. It has like a spongy type quality to it. You could use other things. You could probably use some spices or teas or even flocking to do this if you have it. And I glued it in certain areas around here. I used that heavy gel paste medium. And then I like this. This is the Tim Holtz Distress Powder in peeled paint. And I sprinkled it on top wherever, and where there was still some glue, it picked it up. And it just gives it a tonal quality to the moss. Then these little things here, these little leaves that I have, this one keeps falling over. Okay. This was something that I really enjoyed doing because I didn't know if it was going to work. I used Sizzix Thinlits. It's 661206. And I use this one and that one. And what I did was I cut it out using the Plaid Simply Stencils sheets. You can get stencil sheets where you can make your own stencils, and it's like it's Mylar, I think I looked it up. It said it was Mylar, and it's bendable. It's not that thick. I don't know how. I think it would be heavy cardstock. It's bendable, but the thing I liked about this versus using regular paper or cardstock is that this is not going to tear or rip. And I made these pieces. See, they're very, you can bend them and they don't, you can twist them and they don't rip or break. And what I did with them after I had them all out is I went through the same painting routine as I did with everything else, painted them brown, crackled them, painted them white. I didn't like the way they looked, so then I just painted them green. And once that was dry, I went over with a little of the raw umber and a little other colors, some yellow ochre type color, just to give it some tonal effect, so it wasn't just one tone. And I believe that's done. I told you about the rose here. I also didn't like how these two edges look, so I shoved a rose in there. And when I did that whole paint job of the whole thing, I repainted them. And now you can use it this way or this way. Now, in the beginning, in the introduction, I showed that I made 2 different birds. These are made out of polymer clay. And I didn't put a lot of detail on them. I just put sort of like lines where the wing feathers would be and then the tail feathers. I tried to leave them to look like they would be birds made out of metal. Once these were baked and cooled off, I did the same paint job that I did everything else with, the 4 layers, the brown, the crackle, the white tan, and then the antiquing with the raw, the watered down raw umber. So I found the instructions to how to sculpt birds in this, Creating Lifelike Animals in Polymer Clay by Catherine Dewey. If you're interested in sculpting animals, this is the book to get. I love this book, step-by-step instructions. They have frogs, they have bird, they have mice. That's how I started doing my mice. They have like a basset hound. They have a variety of different animals, and the techniques are very easy. It's step by step. She goes through a lot. I'm just not showing it. Oh, she also has a rabbit. I'm not showing it to you for copyright purposes, but if you can get a hold of this book, I don't know if it's still in print. There might be some still in Amazon in, secondhand. I definitely would get this. It's been something I've used, a resource for many, many years. I don't even know how many years I've had this, but I love this book. So basically, that's it. That's everything. Again, you can, once you have these three pieces, the egg, the top, and the pedestal, you can decorate this any which way you have with the supplies that you have hanging around, and it uses quite a few supplies. It's not hard to do. Most of it is painting. It does take a long time because of the dry time, especially with the paper clay. Uh, but it was a lot of fun. So I hope that you try this out and see what you can create. And until I see you again, have fun creating beauty.